To lie or not to lie? Is that really the question? A lot of us know lying has been here since the beginning of time, and I'm talking about lying. Y'all, this is a concept, a word, a term that is as old as time. It's woven into stories near and far, its beliefs, and everyday interactions. And show of hands, I know it's not only just me. How many of us grew up hearing, if you tell one lie, you got to tell another lie to get out of that one? And so, y'all, on today's episode, that sounds simple, but I want to talk about exploring the complexities of truth versus deception. I don't know how many of you guys will agree with this, but I believe every single Sunday school kid, again, I'm raising my own hands, Genesis 3 and 4, I believe is the first original lie where it says, the serpent said to the woman, you won't surely die. And we know, unfortunately, the woman believed it. Am I the only kid who grew up with Pinocchio? First, I had no clue what this Disney story was even. I just thought it was about his nose growing. And then as the animated puppet, every single time he told a lie, his punishment was that his nose got longer and longer and longer until it got to the point where he told the truth. Unfortunately, nobody believed him. Did you guys know, according to a study that I found, 88.6% of reported lies were described as little white lies, and 11.4% were characterized as big lies. I think you and I both can agree that number probably should be turned the other way around, but I won't mess up their statistic. This was according to the University of Wisconsin in an article that was written on June the 1st, 2024. But the real question is so simple. Why do we feel more comfortable not telling the truth? We're going to examine the biblical origins of lying, as we just talked about in Genesis 3. We're going to talk about the moral lessons from Pinocchio and the psychology why some people feel we as human beings tend to lie first. Is lying always wrong? Well, it depends on who you ask. What's the context behind the lie? What is the intent and the impact of someone choosing not to tell the truth? So I want you to join me. We're going to unravel this truth today on Monica Mentors. Big, small, and every lie in between. According to Merriam-Webster.com, the dictionary, it says that lying is simply information that's marked by untrue statements. The word derives from the 14th century, and it was considered in the Middle English present principle of the word lie, L-I-E. Now, according to, and we mentioned it before, it still stands, Genesis 3 and 4, first lie that was in the recorded lie, in the Bible. Or perhaps it was just the most famous lie that we have talked about, especially in the body of Christ. Now, there was a debate that I found, and in my research, some believe that perhaps it wasn't necessarily the first actual deception, but of course, a lot of people in the study felt that the story of Cain murdering Abel was when God asked him, where is your brother? And he pretty much acted like he didn't know. So there is conversation around which one, not necessarily which one was the worst, but which one was a lie versus the deception. My opinion, they both, neither story, they didn't tell the truth either way, no matter what context we choose to take it. Again, I'm hearing those words again. A lie is still a lie, no matter how you describe it. And so he said, how different is it in cultures and religions that define and interpret lying? Now, this was kind of interesting, guys. I found this study, this case study, and it was from the Rocket study in 2017. And then they did an additional one in 2024 called Culture and Deception. And it was from Oxford Academy as well. Now, in the Arab world, individuals say that they lie to avoid disappointing someone. Well, first example pops in my head of that is when we think about celebrating Christmas. A lot of parents and a lot of adults choose if they want their kids to believe in Santa Claus as an imaginary person that comes down the roof, has these reindeers. There's this whole depiction of how some individuals choose to describe Christmas, whereas other individuals say, I'm not going to lie to my children. I'm Santa Claus. I work for these items. So I guess in that particular example, it depends on how parents choose to classify that lie. And maybe that's why those individuals feel that they lie to avoid disappointing someone, i.e., possibly their children. I don't have an opinion either way. I'm just sharing the data with you. In the U.S., we are so comfortable with the term white lies, and it's considered acceptable or just not taboo. And so I don't know the difference between putting a color on a lie, again, because a lie is still a lie. But according to the study, that's what we believe here in the U.S. I thought this one was really interesting. It even said in the U.S., we consider white lies to be permissible, meaning, let's say if you go to someone's house for dinner and that dinner was terrible, but the person did like this 5-course meal, the appearance was beautiful, so you may say, oh my goodness, everything was really good, even though it was disgusting. A bride, a newborn baby, that's a great example. You see a baby and sometimes you're not quite sure what to say, and you might say, oh, that's my word. But you may potentially say that things are good simply because you don't want the mother or the bride or the groom you don't want to hurt their feelings. Perhaps some may feel that's what we call an acceptable lie or a white lie. I don't know. You be the judge. I thought this one was pretty interesting. In the Chinese culture, they don't characterize. They have no characterization for lying. It's just that. Either you tell the truth or you're not telling the truth. In their culture, it's just that simple. Because in the study, it said that in the Chinese culture, if you misrepresent yourself, that is strictly not. Morally, that's not a good way to carry yourself as a individual in their culture. So they don't put any extra different, definitions or soften it. I guess that's the word I'm looking for, like we do here in the U.S. The Japanese culture, they were more inclined to lie to avoid revealing personal details due to a greater emphasis on their privacy. So as an example, I would think of if someone was wealthy and they didn't necessarily want the people to know they were wealthy, then they may downplay their status in order to not reveal too much of their personal space. We might do that. You know how some of you guys pretend like you're, not in a relationship, but you really are, because you don't want anybody to know too much of your business. But we'll talk about that one in another episode. All right, Pinocchio. It's very popular in a lot of cultures. And this is how it was agreed that why we teach lying. So first of all, let's be clear. Pinocchio's punishment, do you feel that it exaggerated based on the lie versus the consequences? I want you to tell me. Feel free to share that in the comments. Let's talk about it. Because again, don't forget what I mentioned at the top of the episode. Every time Pinocchio, he lied, his nose grew. And so, do we feel like maybe Pinocchio could have had a little grace? I'm going to throw a little caveat in there. Did Pinocchio's owner, his father in the stories, teach him the difference between what could be characterized as truth versus not telling the truth? Other famous fictional liars. Loki, listen, my Disney heads, that is my show. I don't know why my husband's still waiting around to see it. I love Loki. It's not that Loki lies. His action, but Loki lies to get himself out of situations. There was a movie, Catch Me If You Can. That was, I think, Tom Hanks, or there were some other actors that were in the movie. Leonardo DiCaprio, thank you. And so what you want to do is go watch these so you can kind of see if you think that these people lied on the show. I don't know. So, do we feel that media shapes our perception of honesty versus deception? I'm going to say absolutely yes. This is my show, so I give my opinion. Reality television. A lot of you guys that live a certain way in front of the camera, you are night and day behind the camera. I'm not knocking any of the shows, but what I'm saying is I don't think that that's real world perception, but I don't knock any of those shows because it's what we want to see. It's what a lot of us love, having imagined nations to get us through our day. Perhaps we have developed a perception that lying is the betterment for our community. So then, does that drive us into the psychology of why we lie? Simply, why do we do it? Personal testimony here. When I was younger, I just didn't want to get in trouble. I think a lot of times I assumed what my mom and dad were going to say, or my school teacher was going to say, simply because I just wasn't sure. And so I would lie when I was younger for stuff I didn't even have to lie about. Like sometimes, y'all, it would be so bad. My mother would just be like, just stop. Like she was like, you put the energy that you put into telling this story, you could have just did what you were supposed to do. But I didn't think about it that way, because in my mind, if I told the truth, I was going to get in more trouble versus me lying and trying to get myself out of trouble. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that has done that. I think a lot of times we choose lying to simply self-preservation. It's our own space, and we may not necessarily know yet how to configure that space with other people. And so a lot of times it's just better for me to say this to you and let it be that. But what you gotta realize, I heard something on, what's the cat's name? Club Shay Shay, David. When I tell y'all, look, by the way, this particular episode, I like David Banner, and he made a comment. He said his mentor told him, I don't want to do business with anybody that will lie if they're married. If you're married and you lie to your spouse, I don't want to do any business with you, because that means they don't trust you, and that doesn't give me a reason to trust you either. And so in preparing for this episode, that kind of came to mind. Like sometimes when we lie, do we even realize that we are intentionally and unintentionally causing people not to trust us? If you say, I'll give you $1, and 2 weeks go by, you'll say, okay, I'll give you $10 more since you kept the $1. And then all of a sudden you forget to mention to me what your commitment was. And then you start making up, well, people like using the word excuses. I call it lying. But it's still the same thing. We had a commitment. You don't keep that commitment, and yet you keep saying something different over and over again. Then why should I trust you? Why should I think you're not going to continue to lie to me? I know that sounds simple, guys, but it's too many of us in this society. We are floating off lies instead of grounding and having stability within the truth. Are lies always intentional? Or can people deceive without realizing it? Well, I guess there could potentially be some lies that may not be intentional. I think it depends on the situation and the people involved, the intentionality of what are you trying to do? Because, let's be real. Most of the time when we lying, we know we lying. We have the intention of doing it. But going back to what we said in the different cultures, if you're at a wedding and a bride looks terrible, do you want to necessarily ruin the day by telling her she looks terrible? Or do you want to do a wordsmith like I do and say, you know what? That particular, I'm going to find something. You know what? That blush is really pretty on you. I may not describe anything that looks terrible on her, but I will try to focus in on something positive. And then another example, if you can't find anything that will keep you from lying, then just simply say, I hope your wedding is beautiful. May not, you didn't say she was beautiful in it. You just said you hope her day is beautiful. So that may be something to consider, guys. Maybe look for a truthful statement beyond being placed in a position where you're forced to lie, so that you can either A, make that person feel better, or you can get yourself out of a situation, or do like me and just walk away from it. But in the book of Proverbs, I found several scriptures about lying, which I'd grown up in the church, y'all. Some of these I hadn't even heard of before. Proverbs 12:22 says, lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who act faithfully are in his delight. Proverbs 6:16-19 says, there are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are an abomination: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run to evil, a false witness that breathes out lies, and one who sows discord among brothers. Proverbs 19:9 says, a false witness will not go unpunished, and he who breathes out lies will perish. Proverbs 12:19 says, truthful lips endure forever, but a lying lip is only for a moment. You remember I said you got to tell a lie on top of a lie on top of a lie. Proverbs 24:28 says, be not a witness against your neighbor without cause, and do not deceive against your neighbor with lying lips. Proverbs 21:6. Y'all see, it was a lot of them. The getting of treasures by a lying lip is like a fleeting vapor and a snare of death. Proverbs 26:18-19 says, like a madman who throws firebrands, arrows, and death is the man who deceives his neighbor and says, I was only joking. Okay. Whew, we just hit a pet peeve for me. If you say something to someone and they know you're not telling the truth, but they see you react in a way that was contrary to what they thought or how they thought you were going to respond, just pay attention the next time somebody says, I was just joking. 9 times out of 10, that person was lying to you. All right, let me get back because I just had a couple of memories pop in my head. All right, so according to more of my online research, there are between 75 and 150 verses, y'all, that are mentioned lying in the Holy Bible. The word deception appears in the context also. I found this quote. If lying was considered necessary, should we rethink how we define honesty? Say that one more time. If lying was considered necessary, should we rethink how we define honesty? Now, before y'all answer that, y'all better go back and read some of those Proverbs scriptures that I gave you. So, as I wrap up this episode with you guys, one thing is clear. Lying seems to be a choice between a white lie, a truth, and possibly deception. Or is lying defined in the content or the context or the intent and the impact that what you're saying matters to the ears that hear it more than the words that are coming out of your mouth? Remember the serpent's words in Genesis? You remember Pinocchio and his growing nose? We see how lies and shaping stories and relationships make us question what we say, how we say it, and the way that we do it. Now, the question is yours to answer. Is truth always the best policy? Or is deception sometimes necessary? Ladies, remember how we go shopping sometimes and we leave those bags in the car because we don't want hubby to see what we're bringing in the house? Mom and dad, you know how y'all sneak away from the kids and go grab something and come back to the house, but you don't tell them where you've been? Is it 100% for us to stay on honesty at all times? Or are we willing to risk the consequences of deception? Either way you look at it, the choice is still yours. Thank you for joining me on this episode as we took a little small dive into the world of lies and truth. If this conversation made you think, then let me hear about it. Because it's really something that I don't think a lot of us have given consideration to, simply because for a lot of us, we're just so used to doing it. Remember, what's a little white lie? I want you to connect with me, guys. Talk to me. You know, I'm on all the platforms, social media, but you got to make sure, the biggie, you got to go in. A lot of you guys been asking me. I'm going to spell it. I don't know why y'all not typing it in correctly. EBONVISION. That's our network on YouTube. EBONVISION. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I look forward to seeing your comments. Tell me what you think about the show. I'm always open to content and conversation as long as it makes sense. So until next time, stay curious, stay thoughtful, and remember, the truth really is as simple as it seems.